Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We are definitely entering the hottest period of the year, the August, September period. You've got water temperatures that are going to be at a high for the year. And one of my favorite baits to throw is a topwater, but not just any topwater. I really like to throw a walking bait. I feel like this time of year, you get a lot of fish that are going to be out suspended. You get a lot of fish that are going to be in schools. You got a lot of fish that are running the banks in small wolf packs. Honestly, depending on where you're at in the country, you're going to have all of that going on. But no matter where you're at, you're going to have at least some of that going on. And one of the best baits to target those fish is a walking topwater bait. Not only does it do a really good job at mimicking the shad or the bait fish that are in your lake, it does a great job at calling the fish up from a little bit deeper. So if you're fishing suspended fish, you can call them up from 20 foot of water. If you're fishing those wolf pack fish, it's a fast moving topwater bait that gets them to react to it. You know, if there's 3 fish swimming along the bank together and one of those thinks that that bait's going to get away and they have a better shot at getting it than the other 2 bass they're swimming with, they're going to go after it. And generally, a faster moving topwater bait gets those wolf pack fish to go after a bait better versus, say, something like a popper that's just sitting in place. So your topwater choice is really key. Now, I will say there's a bunch of different walking topwater baits that I like to throw. So I'm going to kind of walk you through each of these and describe to you when and where I like to throw them. Now, I will say from a rod and reel standpoint, I use the same gear regardless of topwater bait. Now I'm going to be throwing this on a 7-foot. It's a custom rod that I build. It's the MHX MB843 blank. So it's basically a 7-foot medium heavy action rod. It's got a soft tip, but a lot of backbone to it. So it allows the fish to eat the bait, but when I set the hook, I'm going to drive the hooks home. And I will say, all of these hooks, generally I'm changing to Fusion 19 treble hooks because I do think those are some of the sharpest ones on the market, to the point right now where these things are buried in my hand and I don't know that I'm going to be able to get them out. They're actually hurting my hand pretty good right now. The reality though is I do like a 7-foot rod. I think if you go with something longer than that, you can actually overwork your bait. So I like a 7-foot rod, which to me is a little bit shorter because I want my bait to walk more than me pulling it forward. Now, I will say another key to this is I like to throw it on straight monofilament. Now, I'll generally use 14 or 17 pound Berkeley XL monofilament. I believe that stretch not only allows the fish to get the bait, it also really allows me the ability to not pull it away, but drive the hooks home and have that stretch so that when I'm fighting the fish, if they've only got one hook or maybe they're skin hooked, I'm not going to pull it away from them or pull that hook out. The line's going to absorb a lot of that fight for me, to the point you really have to put a lot of pressure on the bait to rip the hooks out of the fish. So I think it's very key to throw monofilament. Monofilament also floats, so from that standpoint, it doesn't pull your bait under on those really long casts, because that's one of the keys with this bait. It's a really good search bait. So the areas that I'm going to be looking for are generally going to be flatter style banks where I know there's wolf packs that are up chasing and cruising. I'm going to be looking at some of your bigger shallow flats that are in 14 foot of water or less. If you happen to live up here in the North Country, that have scattered rocks, scattered sand, isolated boulders, you know, generally that's going to be a little bit more clear water, but those fish will come from 14, 15 foot of water on the bottom to hit a topwater bait. Absolutely no problem at all. I'm going to be fishing it along weed lines, along weed edges, places like Gunnersville. You get on some of those good weed line edges with a topwater bait, and the bite can be absolutely amazing. But the key here is this is a bait you can cast a 1/4 mile. You can work them quick so you can cover a lot of water. It's a really good bait for me too, to find the fish, and then a lot of times I can slow down with, say, a drop shot or a Ned rig and pick up 1 or 2 more fish that are in that area. From a bait standpoint, I definitely like the Reaction Innovations Vixen. We've talked about that. I like the full-size one, but generally speaking, I don't throw the biggest sizes all that much when it comes to the other walking baits. But I do like the full-size Vixen, and I really like that on current and rivers and water that's a little bit more off colored. I think the noise of this does a really good job at allowing the fish to hone in on it quickly. But if I'm fishing something that's a little bit more clear, Specifically, let's say I'm fishing, you know, some gin clear waters in the North Country where I've got more smallmouth. That's when I like to go with something like this guy right here. This is a Lucky Craft gunfish. A lot of times I like to throw the clear bodied ones because in that clear water, it kind of gives the illusion of there being a fish there, but the fish don't see it nearly as well. But I like it because it's almost a little bit more of a finessey walking topwater bait, and it can be really good for those clear water places where the fish just don't necessarily want a huge moving bait. Plus, in the North Country, we don't have as many big shad. We've got a lot more smaller bait fish that the fish tend to key on a lot of times in the month of September. Your emerald shiners and some of your other smaller river minnows like that. One of my other favorites, and you've seen me throw this a lot, this is a one knocker spook, a super spook. This thing I really like because it's a completely different sound. Most of these baits are really loud, almost have a lot of BBs in it, similar to say your lipless crankbaits. But the one knocker is just a big thud sound. And a lot of times that's what they want. A lot of times they don't want a really loud bait. They want more of that single thud like that. And this to me is more of a bait that I like to throw when I'm going down the bank. Maybe I've got some isolated targets like some docks or some laydowns, isolated weed clumps. It seems like that thump draws them better when you know what targets you're fishing. So if I'm fishing a bigger flat, I like the louder noise because I'm trying to draw fish from further away because I'm doing a lot more random fan casting and fishing much bigger areas. And then lastly, the one that I really like too, if I can get these hooks out, is a Berkeley Jaywalker. This is kind of a mix between a one knocker and say, you know, your regular Rattling versions. It's got the bigger BBs. It casts like an absolute dream. And this thing just does a really good job at walking. Plus it comes in one of my favorite colors. This is kind of hard to find in some topwaters. This is the olive shad color. So it's kind of translucent greenback, and then it's got like that sparkle flash kind of glitter on the side. But this thing does an amazing job at walking. It's one of the easiest baits to use. And if I'm fishing really far out from the boat, because it does cast like a dream, it just is a very easy bait to walk. Whereas some of these other baits, you really gotta get them, like hit the rod hard to get it to walk when you've made an extremely long cast. In this case, this is probably the easiest walking bait that's out there that I use on a regular basis. But I definitely will mix it up. So if I get out and I'm fishing, say, the spook and I'm not getting bit, I'll switch to say, you know, the Jaywalker or a gunfish or go to the vixen, but I definitely play around with it. Color can be key too. A lot of times if I'm fishing really clear water, I do like the more translucent body styles. If I'm fishing around spotted bass or smallmouth, I'll go with some obnoxious colors like blaze orange or chartreuse. And if I'm fishing areas that have a little bit more watercolor, to say like on the Mississippi River, or, you know, some impoundment down south, a lot of times I'll stick with the bone color or straight black. That can be really good in your off-colored water. But this is the time of year, guys. Pick yourself up some walking topwater baits, get out, start throwing them. It's one of the best baits for the month of September because it draws fish from far away and it generates strikes from those isolated lone fish or small wolf packs that are a lot of times tougher to catch. But this is the time of year. Topwater is king, in my opinion. You catch numbers and you can catch absolute giants. So make sure you're out there flinging around a big walking bait, and I'm betting you'll probably have a pretty good shot at some big ones.